Okay, good morning. So before continuing to the new lesson, which is the applications of the chain rule, there are some problems that I didn't find time to solve it for you, okay? I want to go through them first. So I want you to think about this problem first yourself. This is one of the important problems. And you might receive some of these type of questions in the national exam, okay? And this is a level 3 problem. Okay, I want you to think about this problem a little bit yourself. Part A is not that hard, and part B is a little bit harder. I'll wait for you so that you can think about the problem, and then we continue, okay? So problem 3146. One thing that I want to mention is that the mistake that usually students make, they guess the functions. So for example, they say that, okay, the blue curve is y equals to x squared. And coincidentally, it's correct because the author probably when designing this question was thinking about y equals to x squared. But you are not allowed to say because it looks like y is equal to x squared, so this is y equals to x squared. And the same for these lines. So you have to solve this problem only based on the information given on the picture, nothing else, okay? Okay, so let me at least guide you what you're supposed to do. Okay, so you want, again, I hope that you don't forget that what I do, I don't even bother to look at the picture first. What I care is that what is wanted from me. So h prime of 2 is wanted. And then there is only one way that I think about this problem. I ask myself if I want to calculate h prime of 2, what I am supposed to do. If you didn't listen to me, you will not learn mathematics. How many of you started thinking about the graph? It is wrong. You have to ask yourself what I have to do first, then little by little go and to see what you need and what is given. Okay? So I don't know how many of you have started doing something with the graph. This is not a good idea. Okay? Manipulating the information given to you without any strategy in mind is not going to anywhere unless you are so lucky or the problem is so simple. Okay? So, again, if this problem is given to you, you ask yourself one question first. I am supposed to answer this question mark. Then you have to review what you have in your brain about this part. So h prime of 2 is supposed to be calculated. There is only one algorithm with 2 steps. Okay? If you haven't learned that, there is a very slight chance, narrow chance that you can solve the problem. So what are you are supposed to do to calculate two-step algorithm? Step 1.
You find h prime of x.
The step 2.
You put in 2.
You put in 2. Yeah, so these are 2 steps. So you have to do this one first to see what are the obstacles in front of you, and then look back to the information given in the problem. So you have to train this in your brain. It is not hard, but might be you haven't even practiced this way of thinking. Okay, so the first thing comes to mind, I want to calculate h prime of 2. So I calculate h prime of x. Step number 1. Now I go back to see what h is, so that I can differentiate. Now when I want to differentiate, I see that I have something that then you need your memory. What topic is this? If I want to calculate h prime of x, what topic is that? Chain rule. If you remember the formula, better. If not, you know where to look for. Yes? In the university, you have a thick book, might be. You cannot page over every pages. Okay, so what you do, you take the derivative using the chain rule. So how many of you remember that? So h prime of x is what?
F prime of
F prime
g of x.
G of x multiplied by
G prime of
G prime of x. Okay, and then this is the first step. So the first step I needed to differentiate. I looked back to my function to differentiate, then I realized the function is given in this form. I reminded myself about the chain rule. I did the first part. And the second part was, as you said, replace x with 2, yes? Okay, and then to answer this question mark, there are two things in front of you that you're supposed to answer. So if you know this and if you know that, it's easy. Then you multiply, then you get this one. And I really recommend you, because we are humans, we have psychology, start with the simple ones first. Okay? So, of course, this is more complicated than this one. I prefer to start with the simple one. Okay, now my question mark has switched from this to something else. So this is my question mark. And I don't even care what the real question mark is. I just forget about everything and I focus on finding this question mark. Okay, again, g prime of 2 usually means take the derivative and then replace it with 2. And this is unfortunately not working in this problem. Why? G, we don't have the formula for g. So then you have to think, okay, now that I don't have the formula for g, is any other information given in the problem that I can use to find g prime of 2? Hopefully you understand what to do. Is there any information on the picture somehow that you can solve g prime of 2? The answer is yes. You see, there is a yellow line. Whatever it is, it doesn't matter. Is it a line? Is it a very complicated curve? Whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters, it is the graph of g prime of x. And what you're supposed to calculate? You're supposed to calculate g prime of 2. Yeah, so let me change this. Okay, so you know how to calculate a function at a point if the graph is given. So what should I do? I go and find point number 2. So this is point number 1, point number 2. And then I go upward so that I find the intersection with the yellow graph, which is here. And then I go horizontally, I get this point, yes? Is that clear? So I get this point. And I read the number. So what number is? 1, 2, 3, and 4. So g prime, I go back here. So g prime of 2 is 4, yes? Do you see? Okay, and then I go back to another question mark. This question mark, you have enough experience if you haven't forgot. So this means f prime calculated at g of 2. So in order to answer the second question mark, first I need to do what? Everyone say it. So what should I do first?
Find g of 2.
Find g of 2, because f prime, so you see this symbol means f prime after g. So f prime has to wait until g is done, and then I calculate f prime of g. Yes? So then it means that my question mark now is this one. Okay? Do I have the rule for the function? No, but I have the graph for the function g. So this means that again, here, I have to refer once more to the picture and look for which graph? Which graph is that? G. Yes? And then that is the blue curve. And you see that we don't even know. We don't even need to know what the curve is. We don't care. What we care is g of 2. So how can I calculate g of 2? This is the blue curve, which is for the function g, as you see. I go and find 2. I go vertically up to find the intersection with the blue curve, which in this problem, coincidentally, is the intersection with the yellow graph. So I go back here. So then what the point is, as always, as before, what is point? 4. So this means that I go one step down. So this becomes f prime of which number? 4 multiplied by 4. Yes? And then there is only one obstacle in front of me to calculate f prime of 4. Then again, I want to calculate f prime of 4. I refer to the picture and look for the graph of which function? F prime. And the graph of the f prime is the red line here, apparently. Okay? Is that clear? Okay, so what is f prime of 4? So I have to go and find number 4, 2, 3, and 4. And again, go vertically upward and find the intersection point and go horizontally. So what number is?
5.
It's 5. Yes? So f prime of 4 is 5. So I go back here. So I put 5. times 4. Yes? And the answer becomes what? 20. So it is a level 3 problem, but you see the calculation is minimal. So the concept is a little bit harder. So I told you that's the nature of this course. So there is a technique that you have to master, and there is also concept going on. Is that clear? Okay, and so I want you to understand, this is the logical way of thinking. If you start immediately manipulating the information you have randomly and blindly, I told you, if the problem is simple, you might do something. But if the problem is hard, there is no way for you to solve the problem. Unless you're very lucky. And if you're so lucky, you don't even need to study. Okay? You can buy a lottery or something and win. Any questions? Okay, the second part is harder. Try to practice this. For example, some of you say that, okay, I see this is a straight line. This is not correct. And because might be this is a circle with a very huge radius. Your eye cannot differentiate between a very huge circle because that's just one part of the graph. You understand what I mean? So if you say that I see this is a straight line, yeah, it's not completely correct. And you see that we don't even need to guess what G and F are. Yes, so you need to learn which information you need. Okay, the second one, of course, I agree, it's a little bit harder. I want to wait for you to see how you do that. You don't need to completely solve the problem, but it is very important to be on the right track. Yes, so that is very important. Okay, so how do you think now? Again, let us review this. So the question mark is h prime of 1. I have algorithm with 2 steps. The first step is to take the derivative of h and then replace x with 1. Okay? Now you want to do the first step. So here, what do you think about if you want to do the first step? Do you feel something related to the chain rule or not? And a little bit weird thing as well. So what is the relation with the chain rule? Because I have f of another function. This is somehow related to the chain rule. But the weird thing is that usually instead of having g of x, I have something very strange, 1 over g of x. Okay, so how do you think? Because so you see, I don't even bother to look at the pictures yet, because I am stuck in the first step. Why should I go and look at the picture? Make troubles for myself, yes? So the first thing that I want to do is to calculate h prime of x. And this is the only formula you find in the formula sheet. Okay? So you see, I don't think anything except just seeing that how can I differentiate. So I momentarily forget about everything. I ask myself, how can I find h prime of x? There is no point looking around. You need to concentrate here only. Yes, ma'am?
You replace 1 over g of x with g of x to the power minus 1.
Yes. Yes. So it is somehow correct. Why we do that? So you jumped a little bit ahead. So if you want to think about this, you know these are just names in mathematics. So 1 over g of x, okay, that is up to you. You can call it something like, for example, capital G of x. Yes, so I give this a name because if g of x is a function, 1 over g of x is another function, so I am allowed to give it a name. If you haven't learned these very simple tricks, learn them now, so this will help you. So f of 1 over g of x can be viewed of f of capital G of x, and this is the normal situation. Is that right? So I can, by just thinking in that way, I have f after capital G. Okay? So if I ask you what is the derivative of f after capital G, what do you say? If you see this rule in the formula sheet, what does it mean? It means that is derivative of capital G of x, yes, and then multiplied by capital G of x prime. So you see I have done nothing except I just renamed 1 over g of x in my head to be capital G of x, and then this formula is in front of me. It doesn't matter if this is little g or capital G. Yes? Okay, so at least the first part is done. Okay, again, what I have to do, I have to follow the algorithm. The algorithm is that after this is done, replace x with 1. So you see, I am just following the same algorithm. Okay? And in order to answer this question, I have two things to answer. Yes? I have to answer what this is and what this is, and then multiply them. Then I will get my question. Okay, so here this is a little bit more tricky this time, because g of x is something a little bit more involved. If you don't mind, let us first calculate this one. Okay, and by the way, this is important. Even in the A-level question, you cannot solve one part, you can solve the other part. Just do that because you will get points for it. Okay, so let us start from here. Let me call it question number 1. So question mark number 1 is f prime of g of 1. Okay? So can you help me to do that? This is exactly at the right level of you. I would say that if you follow what is natural, you will find the answer. So how can you help me to do this? You see, when you want to calculate this, again, I have trained my brain. This means one thing. It means f prime after capital G. So it means f prime has to wait so that capital G is done, and then f prime can apply on this result. Okay, so this is one thing. So you see, I am using the same ideas over and over and over again, but I have trained myself a lot so that I can do it quickly. Okay, but you have to think in that way, otherwise you will not learn. So this means that f prime has to wait. Capital G of 1 should first be calculated. Okay, now I want to hear from you. Can you tell me how can I calculate capital G at 1? Yes? Yes, so it means that because this is your capital G, so is it easy for you to understand? When I ask you what is G of 1, it means that I am replacing x with 1. So it means that I have to replace x with 1 on the other side. Yes or no? Okay, so this is just 1 over G of 1. Okay, but this is not done because f prime is waiting so that this is done. So how should I continue? So I need to ask myself, is there any way that I can find G of 1? Is there any way?
Correct.
Yes, I go back to graph. So this is the first time I even bother to look at the graph, not before this step. Okay, so G of 1, I need the graph of which function? G, which is the blue one here. So this means that I have a goal in mind. I am not looking at the graph randomly now. I know what I need by looking at the graph. I need G of 1. So it means what I should do? I need to go to the blue curve and find point 1 and go upward, find the intersection, go horizontally and find my point, which is 1. Okay, so this means that I go back to the board. So this becomes f prime is still waiting. This is 1 over, what did I find? 1. But everyone knows 1 over 1 is 1. Okay? And now I ask myself, I need to find f prime of 1. Again, this is the second time I look at the picture. Yes? This is not a piece of art so that I want to look at it all the time. Whenever I need it, I look it back. So I need f prime of 1. Which graph is suitable for me here? The red one, because this is related to f prime as you see. So again, I go and find point 1. What do? I go vertically upward, and then I find the intersection with the red graph, and then go horizontally. Which number I find? 2. So that is just 2. Okay, so if there are 3 points, you got 2 points so far, even if you cannot solve the problem. Okay, why not? Yes, 2 is better than 0. Okay, now let us get all the points. So I need now to ask myself, what is G prime of 1? Again, how I train my brain, when I see G prime of 1, again I go back to the same algorithm, but very fast. So what should I do for calculating G prime? Yes?
Prime of 1 over gx.
No, don't jump ahead. Yes? There is one algorithm. If I want to find capital G prime of 1, I have to find the capital G prime of x, and then replace x with 1. So I'm following always the same algorithm. Unless there is a good reason for me not to do that, if the problem is so complicated, going natural way. Okay? So then it means that I concentrate in asking, how can I calculate G prime of 1? Then you know what you are supposed to do. For the second question mark, let me call this second question mark, I need to find G prime of x. So this is very natural to find G prime of x. You see, if someone someone asks you why you are doing it, because I want to tell the person I want to find G prime of 1, I have to find G prime of x first, then replace x with 1. Okay, but how can I differentiate this? Because G was not in the problem from the beginning, that is a name I brought in to solve my problem simpler. Now I have to go back at some point. So it becomes 1 over G of x prime. Yes? Yeah.
You can use a chain rule on this one.
We have to use the chain rule again. Okay? So, but I want to do it in the faster way that I told you. So what you do, if you have enough experience of what to do with 1 over something, you have enough experience. I have to bring it up, yes? So what happens if I bring this up? It becomes G of x to the power of negative 1. This shouldn't be hard for you now, because this trick, we have used it over and over again. So this is a trick and technique, okay? And then there's no concept there. Okay, so there's the prime here. Okay, so what should I do? I need to ask myself, if I give you x to the power of minus 1 and I ask you to differentiate it, do you know how to do that? So what was the rule? Minus 1 goes down, x to the power of minus 1 minus 1. But that is not x, this is g of x. So you can say this is u. Okay? Do you remember the trick I told you to do it faster? You can consider this to be u in your head. Do I know how to differentiate u to the power of minus 1? Yes, I told you, you can pretend that u is the same as x, but there is only one thing that you shouldn't forget. What was that thing? So I pretend that u is x. But what is, I have to remember? Multiply by u prime. Okay? So I have to do this, okay? And then what happens? So it becomes minus 1. So if you don't mind, let me just write minus. And then u to the power of minus 2, but u is this guy. But it is not finished. I have to multiply by u prime. So it becomes g prime of what? X. Yes? And if you want, you can simplify this a little bit if you want to. I keep the minus sign. I keep g prime of x, and I bring it down. To make the power positive, this is not compulsory. That is up to you what to do. Okay? So the first step is done. I took the derivative, and the derivative is more complicated than part A. But if you follow the algorithms and memory, this is essential, okay? Then you can understand what to do. Okay, but you are not confused. What is the next step? I am supposed to calculate g prime of 1. That is the first step in my algorithm. The second step is to replace x with 1. So I go here. So g prime of, capital G prime of 1 is equal to, I have a minus sign here, and then I replace x with 1. So this becomes g prime of 1 divided by g of 1 to the power of 2. Yes? And then again, I bother to look for the third time to the picture, and that's done. So what I know what to look for. I need two things, g prime of 1, and I also need g of 1. Okay, so when I go back to the graph, I know what I'm looking for. So the first thing, g prime of 1 together. What is g prime of 1? Yes, because this is 1. I go vertically upwards so that I intersect the g prime function, which is here, and then I go horizontally. That point is 2. So I go back here. I have a minus sign. I have a fraction line. I realize that this number is 2. I also need g of 1. So I go back to the graph. I need to go 1, and I go to intersect with the blue graph this time. So what is g of 1? 1 again. Okay? So this becomes 1 to power 2. Okay, and then what happens here? It's just minus. Okay, so the question mark that I have finally is equal to the product of these two, yes? Question mark 1 multiplied by question mark 2. Question mark 1 is 2, question mark 2 is minus 2. So it becomes 2 multiplied by minus 2, so the answer is minus 4. Yes? Is that understandable? So you have to train. If you want to be a good problem solver, you have to think somehow like a robot. So you have to practice so many times so that you can have these techniques in your head so that you can use them. But the problem is that if you want to, this is a very bad habit. See, students start manipulating the given data without any strategy in mind. So you should have a strategy and then see what information is good to extract from the data. Okay? Okay, so let us go now to the next problem. Let me ask you, of course I want you to think about this. Hopefully you can solve this problem without any problems, okay, without any difficulties. I want to wait for you a little bit. If you solve the problem, don't waste your time. Go to the next one as well, please. I don't know, this one probably does not deserve a level 3 problem. Anyway, might be level 2 is good for this. Okay, after you're done that one, please do this one as well. But please pick up your book or write the answer because I want to take off the screen. If you have your book, these problems are on page, which page I cannot see, 84. Okay, could you solve the first one? Yes? I remember that I made a short video. Let us see from this question. Might be you can see the answer here. So you can also, by the way, see some of the short videos. I remember that they are only 1 minute. You know that's the policy of YouTube. You cannot have it more than 1 minute. So if you're not lazy enough, you just look at the videos later, okay? But I remember that I solved this problem that you're supposed to solve here. So let me see. But I don't know it is visible or not. No, that is not that one probably. And this is the love story music, you know. For me, math is love story, yes. But it is so small, unfortunately. But that is exactly the same question. No, you cannot see it. I don't know how should I don't. Yeah. So I don't know, let us review this again. So that was exactly the same question. I don't even know that. So let me see, go back here. And then this is number 4. There are other practices, we haven't studied them yet, but it is good if you, this is reason, so. That's the answer. Did you got that answer? Yes. Did you enjoy the music? Actually, YouTube complained about the copyright and said that, okay, the owner of this song doesn't feel any bad if you use it. So I don't even know why they complained then. Anyway, so that was the problem in the book. How many of you got the correct answer? So the correct answer was e to the power of square root of 2 over square root of 2. Yes? Yes? Did you understand what was going? Of course, the policy in YouTube is to go very fast, under 1 minute. Okay, but that I will explain it here for you. So, what we are supposed to do, we are actually supposed to differentiate this function. So the function is given, so what was the problem? Let me go back to the problem here. The problem is, a function is given, you are supposed to calculate f prime of 1. So this is a very standard problem, yes? So let me write it down here. So problem 3148, 3148. So the function is given to be f of x equals to e to power square root of x squared plus 1. Then you are supposed to find f prime of 1. Again, this is the same question over and over again. What I'm supposed to do, I have an algorithm with 2 steps. I have to find f prime of x, and then I have to replace x with 1. Okay? So, but the problem is that, do you remember, I don't want you to write the inner function, other function, then it becomes very complicated. I told you that the trick is to take something to be u in a way that when you do that, it is comparable to one of the formulas you have in the table. Okay? So, a naive mistake is usually some students first immediately take this to be u. I want to tell you that this is not a good choice right away. Why? Because if I do that, it becomes e to power a square root of u. But e to the power of a square root of u is comparable to e to the power of a square root of x. But e to power a square root of x is not in your table. I'm lazy to write the table down again, but hopefully you remember. Do you remember what we had in our table, which is close to the function e, yes? E to power x. So this, if you take that one u immediately, then you will have e to power square root of u, which is comparable to this function, but this function is absent in our table. So that is not a good choice. If that is not a good choice, I have to change it. So what is the good choice then? What is the good choice? Take the entire one to be u in your head. You don't even need to write it down. Is it a good choice now? Yes, because now it becomes e to power u. E to power u is comparable with e to power x. Do I have e to power x in my table? Yes, so this is a good choice. Okay? And then, the formula, you don't have the formula for chain rules. The only formula for the chain rule you have is that one in the box. So that is not useful for this problem. Here, you see this from your table. The answer is e to power x. For e to power u, the rule is the same. You can pretend that u is the same as x. So you write e to power u. There's one rule that you have to remember, and that's multiplied by u. Okay? So that's important. So what I do, I start writing f prime of x. What happens? It becomes e to power u, which is e to power square root of x squared plus 1, because this is my u. But it is not finished. I have to multiply by square root of x squared plus 1 prime. This is my u prime. And by the way, this is part of the solution. You have to write all these down in your paper, unless only the answer is required. Okay, now the problem is not finished because there is a prime left. You can ignore everything before that, just concentrate on a new problem. So you have to use the trick of u once more. Okay, so what should I take u? Because this formula in its entirety is not in my table. So I have to use this trick. So this time, this is good to take u. This was bad to take u this, but now this is the only option I have. Why this is good, by the way? Because if I take that one u, it becomes the square root of u. Square root of u is comparable with what? The square root of x. Do I have the formula for square root of x in my table? I told you, this is why I told you to memorize this. So this is 1 over 2 square root of x. So for square root of u, the rule is the same. You can pretend that u is x, but the only thing that you have to remember is to multiply by u prime. So you see I'm using this over and over again. So what happens, it means that I have to copy paste here, okay, and then multiply by 1 over 2 square root of u, but the problem is not finished because I have to multiply by u prime. And now you appreciate the name of the chain rule. Yes, these derivatives are coming like the loops of the chain. Okay? And then, do I need something extra for doing this simple part? No. What is the answer? It's just 2x. So what happens? It becomes e to the power of square root of x squared plus 1 multiplied by 1 over 2 square root of x squared plus 1 and then multiplied by 2x. So what I did in the video, I just simplified things a little bit. So I simplify this 2 with that 2 and then I multiply x by 1 by this and put it in the numerator. So it becomes what? I prefer to write x on the left. So it becomes x e to the power of square root of x squared plus 1 and then divided by square root of x squared plus 1. So this is the simplified version of my derivative. But the question mark is not the derivative. I want to calculate f prime of 1, and it is mentioned the exact value. So what I am supposed to do, I have to replace every appearance of x in my derivative with 1. This is 1, 1 plus 1, 2, so it is e to the power of a square root of 2. You don't even need to bother to calculate this because we want the exact value, and that's also a square root of 2. So that's the answer to this problem. Yes, is that clear? Okay, so let us immediately go to the next one. This is so big. No, that's volume. Okay, so the second one, I don't think, they consider the level 3 problem. Let us see why. I don't know how many of you could solve that. This time, f of x is partially given. Why? Because k is missing and we are supposed to determine k. But the problem is that f prime of 1 is given to be 1/2. So I want to use this piece of information to calculate this function, the value of k. Okay, so let us go to the board. So this problem is problem 3149. Okay, and then what do I have? I have f of x equals to square root of kx plus 1. And I know that f prime of 1 is 1/2. My goal is to find k. So this is my problem. Okay, so what I'm supposed to do? I have to use this piece of information. Okay? I cannot use this piece of information here. Okay, so I have to find the derivative in order to be able to use this piece of information. So it's a natural step to take the derivative. But for taking the derivative, what should I do? I need to use the chain rule. I hope that you agree with me. This is a good choice in your head for u. Yes, because it becomes square root of u. Square root of u is comparable with the square root of x, and the square root of x is in my table. Okay, so what happens? I just immediately take the derivative. So if you want, I can write it. So square root of x, you have it in the formula. I hope that you don't have it in the formula in math 4 in Sweden. Okay, so you have to remember it. Otherwise, you have to go and derive it all the time. So this is the formula that you have it in your memory. And then square root of u follows the same rule. The only difference is multiplied by u prime. So this becomes what? It becomes 1 over 2 square root of u. U is kx plus 1. But I have to multiply it by kx plus 1 prime. Okay, the problem is not finished yet because prime is left. What is the derivative of kx plus 1? Thank you very much. Sorry for that. Thank you very much. This problem, I wrote it wrong. So this is 2. So that is also 2. Thank you. That is also 2. Okay? Okay, so now can you tell me what the derivative of kx plus 2 is? It's just k. K is a constant. Okay? So this is just k, and then this means that f prime of x is equal to, because this is just simply k, I multiply it here, so it becomes k over 2 square root of kx plus 2. This is the first step. By the way, if you do this part, you just collect some points. This is why I'm saying that even if the problem is hard and you cannot solve it in its entirety, you can still collect some points, okay? Don't give up so easily. Okay, so then what should I do? I need to use this piece of information. So in the piece of information that I've given, I need f prime of 1, but I know what to do. I go to f prime, replace x with 1, yes? So f prime, according to my calculation, f prime of 1 is what? I replace which variable with 1, k or x? X, because this is f prime of x. When I write f prime of 1, I'm replacing x with 1. Yes, it is k plus 2. Yes? This is f prime of 1 according to my calculation. But f prime of 1, according to the book information, is 1/2. So on the one hand, f prime of 1 is this, I calculated. According to the problem, f prime of 1 is this. So what can I conclude from these two? These two values should be the same. So it means that k over 2 square root of k plus 2 should be 1/2. Okay, might be this is something they made it level 3 because you have to solve a root equation. A root equation is an equation in which you have a square root. So what do you do? Yeah? Multiply both sides by 2, 2 is gone. Okay, more than that, I want to get rid of all fractions. Yes, yes, Ruben? Yes? What? Cross multiplication is a good way, yes. So these tricks, so what he said, cross multiplication, so A over B is equal to C over D, it always means, it is always the case that A times D is equal to B times C. Yes? So here, this multiplied by that should be equal to this multiplied by that. Yes? So this means that 1 multiplied by this. Of course, as you told, it is better to simplify 2's, but we can do it in the next step, and then 2 times that. Yes, understandable? Okay, and as you said, now I divide by 2, because whenever I can simplify things, I want to make my life simpler, so I just divide that by 2, and then I solve this problem. Okay, but how should I solve a root equation? This is a Math 2C problem, yeah. So I square both sides, so I raise it to power 2 to get rid of the square root sign. Yes? And then of course this is a quadratic equation in which k is unknown, so let me move these to the other side, so it becomes k squared minus k minus 2 is equal to 0. Either you use PQ formula or ABC formula, or if you are good in factorization, it is simpler to factorize. Okay, that's up to you. Okay, but let me do factorization to review a little bit things. So I put a k here and a k there, and I ask myself, I need two numbers whose sum is minus 1, and the product is minus 2. So what are those numbers? Can you guess? It's not hard in this case. Two numbers whose sum is minus 1, and the product is minus 2. Yes?
2 and minus 1.
2 and, no, minus 2 and 1.
Yeah.
Minus 2 and 1. Do you agree? If you don't believe, you can multiply them. K squared minus 2k plus k is minus k and this. If you don't like this method, don't worry. Just use PQ formula. And then you find the answers. So there are two answers. One k is equal to 2, or the other one k is equal to minus 1. Why? Because the product of two numbers is equal to 0. If the product of two numbers is 0, it can only happen if and only if one of them at least is 0. So either this one is 0, so k is 2, or that one is 0, k is minus 1. So do you agree with what I've written here? I promised I didn't cheat, so the answers are correct. But is this the end of the problem or not? So might be this is why they call it level 3 problem, yes.
You have to find the false root.
Yes, so it might be, if you have remembered, in root equations, there's always the possibility that you have a false root. And in this case, one of them is a false root. Because if you put minus 1 here, it becomes the square root of 1 equals to minus 1, which is a false root. Okay, so this is not acceptable. False root. Okay, this one is acceptable. If you go back here, you replace k with 2, it becomes 4, square root of 4 is 2, and 2 is equal to 2, so that's correct. So there is only one answer to this problem, not two answers. Okay, so it is important. Okay, whenever you solve root equations, it might happen that you get some false roots. And the reason for that is that because we didn't solve that problem, we solved this problem. And these two equations are not equivalent. Equivalent means that you can go back and forth between them. I can go in this direction, okay, but I can go back from this step to this step, but I am not able to go back here because if I take square root, I have to put plus and minus. So this equation and this equation are not equivalent. And what I did, I solved this one, not that one. Okay, so be careful. That is the reason that you might get some false roots at the end. Okay, any questions?